This is the Basic 5 Pilates mat instructional video. So in the original Joseph Pilates mat work, there are divisions into Basic 5, Basic 10, Intermediate, and Advanced. So as you progress through your Pilates skills, you never stop doing the beginning work, you just add on to it. And although it's called Basic 5, they really are not that basic at all. They contain all the little nuggets of the Pilates movements that you will see even in the super advanced work. So I'm going to teach you some preparatory exercises to help you get into the Basic 5 mat work so that you can be a little more successful at it. And I'll show you how to utilize a couple of props and give you some modifications along the way. So once you get the hang of the Basic 5 mat work, it's an easy 5 to 10 minute little workout. It's a great way to start your morning or to restore yourself after a long day. You can do it every day, you can't overdo it. So let's begin. So one of the hard parts about Pilates is that you have to move your own body weight against gravity, and you have to manage the heavy masses at the ends of your spine. And those heavy masses are your skull and your pelvis. And depending on the position you are in gravity, those heavy masses can seem really heavy. So some of our preparatory work is going to be to help you figure out how to manage their weight so that you can move in space. So we're going to start on your back. And I have a little blanket underneath my mat because I'm on a hard floor. There's some rolling that happens in Pilates. So if you are on a hard surface, it wouldn't hurt to put a towel or an extra blanket underneath. So you're just going to have your knees bent, and you want your feet fairly bent, knees fairly bent, so that you can really feel the weight of your legs standing down into your feet. And then just bring your hands to your hip crests and just notice your default. Sometimes we tend to be really rocked back towards our low spines. Sometimes we tend to be very arched up off of the floor. Everyone has their own default. Most of us are not perfectly level when we lie down. So just check in. So now you're going to imagine that your body is on a raft in the lake, but your feet are on the dock. So you're actively pressing into your feet. And we're going to go into what are called the pelvic rocks, which are the beginning of the pelvic clock exercise. So if you visualize a clock right on your pelvis, 12 o'clock would be up towards your navel, 6 o'clock is down towards your pubic bone, 3 o'clock is your left hip, 9 o'clock is your right hip. So you can kind of use that as a compass. Now before we start moving, put your right hand onto your left hip crest and then put your left hand at your sit bone. And just know that your hip crest and your sit bone are the same bone. They're both part of your pelvis. So if you are going to pick up your sit bone, then your hip crest is going to tip back. And if you're going to drop your sit bone, your hip crest is going to pick up. So just note that when one moves, the other moves because they are the same bone. So beginning with our pelvic rocks, you're going to navigate from your sit bones and you're going to pick your sit bones up. And if you put your fingertips back there, you should feel tone through your hamstring attachments. When you lift your sit bones, it's going to flatten out your low back and drop you towards 12 o'clock. Now take your sit bones down towards the floor, remembering that you're still standing your feet on a dock. That will create more of an arch through your low spine. We're going to take that again. Sit bones pick up, sit bones tilt down. And if you remember which way your default was, you're going to find that you have a little trickier time going to the other direction. So you're just going to try to navigate evenly from one end to the other. And just know that you could do all this motion from your waistline or from your back, but we're going to keep trying to steer from the bottom of our pelvis because that's really the end point of our spine. Right? So then you're going to keep yourself level. Narrow your feet so that your feet are together standing on the dock. It's helpful to have your hands on your hips so you have some feedback. You're going to press firmly down into your right foot, and without disturbing your body on the raft or tipping your pelvic clock, you're going to pick up your left leg. Keep your shin bone totally hanging and then put it back down. Press into your left foot, pick up your right foot. and put it back down. And you may find that you have a different experience organizing from one side to the other. Sometimes if there's a little wobble through the hip, it's really because the standing leg maybe didn't do its job, or it didn't get established soon enough. Now just know there's always a follow through if you go far enough in your range. So if you go beyond where you can just flex your hip, your pelvis will have to tip and your spine will have to change. And that's not a bad thing. That's just what happens. So just be aware and know what you're trying to move. If you're just trying to move your leg, you keep it in that range. If it feels great to you to follow through with your pelvis and let your spine be part of it, go for it. So these are just called knee folds. You're trying to keep your pelvis nice and still and experience the full weight of your leg. Now we're going to take a couple of leg slides. So stand firmly into your right foot, slide your left heel forward heavily on the mat, and notice as you get near the end range if your pelvis wants to tilt. Get it completely straight and then slide your heel home, still feeling the weight of your leg. Establish your stance into your left foot, slide your right foot forward, and then slide it home. Now you may notice as you get near the end range, something like this wants to happen. As we get our legs straighter, sometimes our pelvis goes along and our back arches. That's just because we tend to be kind of tight in the front of our hip. So that's why it's useful to have your hands right on your hip crests and feel the oppositional energy of your musculature pulling up as your leg goes forward, so that you're maintaining yourself up in your suspenders and allowing for your musculature to get longer rather than your skeleton to get dragged. So we'll take one more of those leg slides, inhaling through the nose in the Pilates work and exhaling through the mouth. Now we're just going to take a little round around the pelvic clock. So remember that your navel is 12 o'clock, pubic bone is 6. So you're going to start by lifting your sit bone. So I always imagine a marble on my low belly and the marble rolls to my navel. Then I'm going to revolve the marble around to 3 o'clock, down to 6 o'clock, over to 9 o'clock, and back up to 12 o'clock. And the whole time I'm trying to stand into my feet and steer with my sit bones. And don't be alarmed if you don't feel very coordinated. Sometimes certain parts of the clock are a little bit glitchy, and that's why we practice it. Once you've done about 3 in that direction, you'll revolve the other way. Moving down to 6 o'clock and back up to 12 o'clock. And just try to get a little smoother in the arc. Notice if you lose your foot stance, and just keep coming back to that. We're going to go into one more. And we finish the revolution at 12 o'clock, and then you want to return to level. So all 4 points, 12, 3, 6, and 9 are on the same plane. So that's a little bit about managing your pelvis in space. Now, you also have to figure out how to manage your head. Your head weighs 8 to 10 pounds for most of us. It's really hard to pick it up. So we're going to practice just some isometric head lifts. So you would like to imagine that your head and your pelvis are on the same plane as each other, and you want to just float your head enough that you could slide a piece of paper underneath. So it's barely lifted. Maybe you just unweight your hair. And you're going to try to hold that for 3 full breaths. I feel all the musculature in the front of my neck really working hard. And then you can rest, and you'll take that again. So isometric means that you are engaging and contracting your muscles without actually moving them. You're in a space hold. And supposedly a healthy neck should be able to hold this for 1 minute. So be glad you're just doing this for 3 breaths. We're going to take that one more time. Barely lift. That's the very hardest thing, is to get your head barely off the mat. And bring it back down. Now you're going to imagine that you have a pencil going right through the center of your ears. In fact, you can put your thumbs in your ears. Rotate your hands so that your fingertips are on the back of your skull. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to barely lift your head, and then you're going to swivel your head so that you're starting to tip your chin down and look towards your chest. And then you're going to unswivel your head and place it down. Now you're going to try to do it without stretching your thumbs where your ears are. So when you lift up, if your head shears off its axis, you're going to stretch your ears, right? You don't want to do that. You want to be able to float and then swivel cleanly around your thumbs. That's how we lift our heads. There's so much head lifting in Pilates, and it's really worth breaking it down and building the strength to do it. Because Pilates should be strengthening for your neck. It should not be a pain in the neck. So I'm going to try one more of those. You barely float, you rotate, and you lift. And you bring it back down. Rest your head. Pull your knees into your chest. You're going to roll to one side and just bring yourself to all fours. So you're going to press your palms down. Now, sometimes people believe that their wrists are too weak to bear weight. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. Step your hands slightly forward of your shoulders. Now, sometimes our wrists get really sore because we are just sinking all our weight down. So just allow your chest to kind of drop through and feel how your shoulder blades behind you come together, sort of like elevator doors. We're going to call this lazy cat. All your weight is pouring into your wrists. Now press the floor away and see if you can separate your shoulder blades. That's what we're going to call active cat. So we're going to do lazy cat, and we're going to do active cat. Lazy cat, I'm not really changing my spine, I'm just changing my shoulder blades. One more time, lazy. You can feel how this position would fatigue much sooner than this position. Now you're going to see if you can raise the heel of your hand up so that you're on the mound of your fingers. And then you're going to press back down. That's pretty hard. That's like a little forearm push-up. So you're going to pull up. A lot of times wrist sensitivity is just weakness through the forearms and the hands. So we would do well to build some strength here. Lifting and lowering. And one more like that. Lift and lower. And then we're going to do a little shift forward. Forearms are going to reach over your hands. It's very small because your wrist joint can only go so far. And then come back. Shift forward. So your arm bones are gliding over your hands and returning. You might feel quite a big stretch, which is fine. You'll build strength pretty quickly here if you practice this. Now, the reason we did our active cat is because we're going to go into a little cat and cow exercise. Remember your sit bones, bottom of your pelvis, you're still going to steer from your sit bones and your head. So if you pull your sit bones under and you swivel your head around that pencil, you're going to end up in spinal flexion. Now, keep your active cat shoulders. Lift your sit bones. Lift your head and stretch your heart up. Make sure in this spinal extension that you didn't drop into your lazy cat. You're still up. So that cat and cow is very much a muscular action. Head and tail curling under. Head and tail picking up. No extra weight sinks down into your wrists. One more time. Curling under and lifting up. And if it feels good to you, you can go ahead and take a child's pose for a couple of breaths just to open up your spine. All right, now we're ready for our basic 5. So I'm going to show you some modifications. This is called an overball. I know many of you have one of these. You can use it under your pelvis for that whole pelvic rock series. It just gives you a little more range potential. You can also use it under your neck for a little neck work. And for this first exercise in the basic 5, the hundreds, you could place it underneath your upper back for extra support. So I'm going to show you how to do it in a modified way first. So from your back, remember your feet are standing on the dock, raise your arms up to the ceiling. Do a little bit of a lift up of your shoulder blades, because that is just like your active cat when you were weight bearing on your hands. So you don't want your blades to be flopping down. Lift them up. Pick your head up just enough to put a piece of paper underneath. Swivel around your ears and raise your shoulders up. Bring your arms down parallel to the floor. Now the first version, you could just keep your feet pressing down. You're going to pump your arms about 12 inches up and down, inhaling for 5 pumps and exhaling for 5 pumps. Next stage, you could add your knee folds so that your feet are elevated. You could extend your legs. Notice how when you do this, your head wants to get heavy and fall back. So you have to keep reminding yourself to stay lifted. Next stage, you could try lowering one leg and bring it up. You could lower the other leg and bring it up. The final stage is you would have to keep your sit bones lifting so that you could support your legs 2 inches off the ground. And we're going to take 3 more breaths here. It's called the 100 because you breathe in for 5 pumps, you breathe out for 5 pumps, and you do it for 10 breaths, which makes 100 pumps. You can lower your legs, stretch your arms, rest your head. You can even do a little head turn from side to side. That's the Pilates 100. You pretty much do that in every Pilates workout you ever do. Super hard. The next exercise is the roll up. So I'm going to show it to you with a TheraBand first. You can do this with ankle weights or hand weights or both. If you use hand weights, you only need maybe 2 to 3 pounds at the most. Even 1 pound can be really helpful. If you have a TheraBand, you can hook it around your feet. So I'm going to show you a couple with your TheraBand. Just gives you a little extra support. So when you're on your back, make sure that your sit bones are a little bit up. We don't want them down and passive, but we want to be active so that we're not really resting on the floor, but we're standing into our feet. Raise your arms a little bit. Now lift your head just enough to put your piece of paper under. Swivel your chin, look at your toes, and start to peel up off the floor. As you come forward, if you feel limited in your hamstrings, you can bend your knees and take a forward reach. You'll probably have to widen your arms to keep strap tension. And then as you roll down, all you're doing is navigating from your sit bones. You're doing a big, giant pelvic rock, lifting 6 o'clock, dropping back to 12 o'clock. So it's like the world's slowest sit up. So I'll take one more with the TheraBand. Inhale to swivel your head. As soon as you get to the stiff spot, exhale. If possible, you keep your legs straight. And you inhale to start rolling down. Exhale to finish. Inhale to come up. Exhale to go over. I'm going to get rid of my TheraBand just to show you the other version. Really nice to have hand weights here for a little counterbalance. Make your way down. If your hands are free from a TheraBand, you can go ahead and take your arms all the way overhead. And we're going to take 2 more. So your arms will lift, you curl your head. Now for me, I still get stuck right here. So I'm going to hold the backs of my thighs, really stand into my feet. And as soon as I can let go, I'm going to let go. Now, even here, you're having to manage the weight of your head. So make sure that you're doing that appropriate swivel of your neck and then roll yourself back down. Arms go up and you stretch back, and we'll take one more. Lift, curl, exhale as needed, and reach forward. And then roll it back down all the way to the bottom. And stretch. All right, we're gonna take our single leg circle. That's the third exercise in basic 5. I'm going to show you one leg with a TheraBand and then one leg without so that you have options. So you're going to place your right foot into your TheraBand if you have one. You're going to anchor your elbows. Now, even this is an opportunity to work on your forearm and your grip strength. So try not to just wind yourself up into the band, but try to actually use your hands. Now, I'm going to start with my leg fairly low so that I can get my pelvis completely level. And then I want to pick my leg up only as far as my pelvis can stay level. So remember, we talked about the follow through. If you pull beyond where you have hamstring length, your pelvis will change and then your back will change. And we don't really want to end up here. See how my standing leg has come off the ground? That puts me into my low back as a leveraging mechanism. So I want to stay out here so I'm strong in my hip. Now some of you will be down here. That's totally fine. So from wherever you are, you're going to inhale, pull into the stretch. Now the pulling leg is still actively reaching, and then exhale to come out of the stretch. You're going to inhale to pull into it, exhale to come out of it. One more time. So as my foot comes closer to me, my sit bone is reaching away energetically. Right, now we're going to do the single leg circle. So the primary version would keep your pelvis still. You're going to cross over your midline just a little. Anatomically, your leg doesn't go very far. So not even as far as the edge of your mat. You're going to push your leg actively into the band and you're going to bring it around. Inhaling to start the circle, exhaling to finish the circle. Just mobilizing the leg and the hip joint, keeping it nice and fluid, keeping your hips strong. One more in that direction. And then you change direction, making sure as you open your leg away from midline that your pelvis doesn't tip. So you're trying to keep your pelvic clock nice and sturdy. Definitely something has to be happening in your standing leg to help you do this exercise. One more time. And then when you release, get rid of your strap. You can pull your knee into your chest if that feels nice to you. And then lengthen your leg down. And just notice how your two legs may feel in comparison to each other. Sometimes the leg that just did the circles feels a little bit more grounded on the mat. So I'm going to show you the second side a little bit more advanced. You're going to raise your leg as far as you can without your pelvis tipping. If you can reach the back of your thigh, take a hold, and then inhale to stretch. Exhale to release. If your foot is flexed, it'll require a little more stretch. If it's pointed, a little bit less. Doesn't really matter what you choose to do, but it's nice to have an active foot. One more like that. Then for the circle, I'm going to show you the version where you lift your hip. So it incorporates a spine twist. I'm going to move from my pelvis. I'm going to rotate so that my hip actually lifts. Then press down, circle all the way around. Inhaling to start the circle. Exhaling to finish the circle. Breathing in, breathing out. Remembering to stand through the leg that's on the floor. One more time. Ultimately, you do 5 of these and you can just move on your own time. And then when you reverse, the trickiest part is opening the leg to the left without tilting your pelvic clock over. So the pelvis only moves in the twisted portion of the circle. 2 more times, breathing in, exhale, last one, exhale. The knee comes into the chest, and then you can roll yourselves up to sitting for rolling like a ball. So for rolling like a ball, you're going to take a hold of your ankles. Slide your feet close to you. Now you still have your feet on the ground. Put your weight a little bit behind your sit bones. And then try to flex your spine forward so your head comes close to your knees. Now come up off your heels, maybe balance on your tippy toes, and see if you can pick your feet up without falling backwards. So you're not going to lean back to unweight your legs, but what you actually have to do is tighten your curl and lower. And if you're on a really hard floor, I would not recommend doing rolling like a ball. You can just do these preps and hold them. And release. I'm going to move a little bit more forward on my mat. You're going to keep your head curled. You're going to curl your sit bones and pull your knees so close to you that you roll over. And then exhale to come up. Ideally, you don't land your feet, you keep them up. Inhale to roll. Exhale to come up. Inhale. Exhale. Take 3 more. Use your exhale to help. Last one. And then you're going to sit further back on your mat for spine stretch. Now, spine stretch involves sitting up straight with your legs out straight. So for some of you, that's not that feasible. You could sit yourself up on a roller. You could even sit up on a stool or in a chair. But we'd like to be right up on your sit bones. So you'll know this isn't a great position for you if you find yourself kind of falling back behind your sit bones and holding on for dear life with your low spine. We want to get that clear hip flexion up so that you're perched on your sitting bones, which is what they're for. Your legs could be any width. So if it feels great to go super wide, go for it. But at least have them mat width apart. You're going to take your arms forward. Now remember that lazy cat, active cat. So try not to default into lazy cat. This is not a great place for your shoulders. It's not going to help you bend forward. So if it helps, you could rotate so your pinkies are down and feel like you're presenting something or handing a box to someone out in front of you. So you're a little more broad across your shoulders. You're going to do your swivel of your head around your ears, and then you're going to glide forward and down. Exhaling. Inhale, stack yourself up. Could be useful to pretend you're up against a wall and you're just going to peel your spine off the wall. Exhaling. When you're all done exhaling, you'll know it's time to come back up on your big inhale. Exhale it over. Now, even though this exercise is named spine stretch, think about the muscles that actually flex your spine. They're your abdominal muscles. So you want to engage through the front of your trunk to bend your back. You don't want to just hang off your tissue. And the last one, exhaling over. You could bring your palms to the floor if that's feasible for you and take an extra breath here. And then on your exhale, perhaps you go a little further. And then you're going to stack yourself back up. And that is your basic 5 mat exercises. Let's just come onto your back. We'll just finish with a little breathing and a little check-in. So notice how your pelvis feels now. Notice how your spine feels. You could slide your legs forward. You could even turn your palms upward and just close your eyes and have about 3 deep breaths. Let your body melt into the floor. Get a sense of the weight of all your bones. Take one more breath. And that is your basic 5. So we did some preliminary work. You can always do that. You can just do that sometimes. You don't have to add it in unless you find it really useful to you. Basic 5 would be your 100, your roll up, single leg circle, rolling like a ball, and spine stretch. And within that, we have all the little bits of the Pilates work that you see in every other exercise. So it's a great way to practice your Pilates skills. Thanks for joining me today.